Okay, so recently we celebrated our 3-year anniversary together. Tell us about the journey at the moment. Obviously, we can go back in time, but tell us about where you are right now.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's a bit of a blur now. 3 years is a kind of a long time, but yeah, I guess I remember when we first met. Uh, Even before that, I saw your photos on Professional Asian, and I was like, I felt like it was like meant to be, and I was like, I literally just jumped on it straight there and then, and I think I called you or messaged you and said, look, I want to meet up, and I can't believe that's 3 years ago now. So yeah, so since then that's it, jumped straight in, and I think I remember the beginning bit I didn't really listen too well. Uh, because I was quite stuck in my kind of body weight training, but I think now I've realised the older you get, the less you know. I think that's big learning for me, and now I think from there to now, like I'm just like shut up and just do what you're told. So yeah, it's been a mad journey. What was it? 3 photo shoots. Ups and downs, and hopefully leveled out a bit. So yeah, it's been absolutely incredible.
Tell us about the change in mindset you have to have when you come onto something like this, in that you have to become a student again, and you have to clean the palette of everything you've known and re-educate yourself. How do you get around that? You don't mind admitting you were very stubborn at that point, but you're not the only one. Like, talk us about that mindset and how you, if you were to start again, how you would have approached it.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic because I'd like to think that I am leveraged mindset, which means, learn from people who are better than you. But I guess I think I was a kid till pretty late. I was a stupid kid till I was about 35. I've just turned 40. And exercise and health has been something that's important for me from the very beginning. Like, I mean, I remember training karate when I can't remember, it was 2, 3, and doing a lot of like different martial arts, going to the gym, coming back, not doing it, going to the gym, coming back, not doing it. And through all of that, I guess the ego says, you must know something about this, right? You've done it so many times. But I think the problem is the ego doesn't allow you to, because you've done that, you should know something, and therefore you're trying to fight a bit, when the reality is, like, just shut the hell up. If you're paying this guy for advice, just listen to what you're doing. And it is a struggle, but like I said, now, like, people ask me stuff like, what are your macros? What are your, what is this? What is that? And I'm like, this is my sheet. This is what I do. I don't pay too much. I don't know. It's like a calculator. People say, you use it, but you don't say, how does it work? So I've got to the point now where I'm like, I just do what you say and I get the results. So it's like that kind of old adage, which is, if you're going to come with your cup empty, come ready to listen if you want the results. If you're not going to do that, you're just not going to get the results. And that's really what happened in the first, I think, I can't remember how many months. I thought I knew, my body weight training, and we did that. And I remember you saying you're just spinning your wheels, and I was like, I need to shut up. And I think this is a bigger point, is that the way you frame things, so physical fitness, mental, and everything you do in life is all about how you frame things. And the first frame that I had on stuff was, I've done so much training, I know, like, I'll take what you've got and I'll add it to what I've got and I'll mix it together. When now the frame that I've got is like, Akash has trained so many people, he's got so much results, like, just listen and do what he's told. So every time we come across a challenge now, it's just how you frame it. So any new people who've come on, you've paid these guys for a reason. And really, if you want to accelerate your learning, just don't try and mix it to what you know. Like, get rid of what you know and just completely follow it, literally to the gram.
Silencing the ego is one of the hardest things for grown adults to do, right? It's always something that people struggle with it. Like, I struggle with myself. We all do, right? To some degree. But this journey is one of those that you have to have an ego death almost to be able to get to where you want to in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about making the subconscious conscious. I think most time people are unaware of it, and it's through conversations, through self-reflection and understanding that you're like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm actually doing this. So I think self-awareness is almost the root of it, because when you understand it, then you can change it. If you don't even know you're doing it, how can you change it? So there's a good part when at the beginning of our training, I didn't even know that I was doing this. It's only now through, this period that I'm like, oh, I was taking what he said, adding to what I had and seeing if it worked. But now I can see it through that kind of reflection. So yeah, just try be aware of what's going on. And I think self-reflection is a massive part of that.
How do you do your
Introspection.
self-reflection outside of the obvious check-in?
Yeah, I think the check-in is actually great introspection. I read your article about why you do written check-in, and I'm like, it's so true. Like, if I've got a point to get across to someone, I've actually sometimes just written it down before I go and speak to them, because it just helps structure it. So I do my introspection. I do weekly reflections on the week, how it what went well, what didn't go well, my key learnings. But then in the mornings when I'm on the treadmill, like I normally do half an hour of just thinking and just putting my thoughts down. That's really, really useful. And the good thing about doing it while you're on the treadmill is your conscious is distracted with by walking, and that allows your subconscious to really take over. And that's what you want to do when you're thinking, because your conscious is a dumb animal. It can only do one thing at a time, right? It can't really multitask, where your subconscious is what really does the heavy lifting in your life. And it's about trying to let your subconscious take over and really, really look into that and dissect it.
A lot of people, getting that subconscious awareness is pretty difficult. And I was having a conversation with another coach about how you get people to bring that subconscious to the surface, so you can uncover the muck and uncover the demons and start exploring them in order to take further action and facilitate a transformation. What advice would you give here to people in that respect? Is it a case of leaning into something that might scare you, or is there something else that you can train yourself to kind of elevate that subconscious?
I think that bringing that subconscious to the forefront is a lifelong skill of self-exploration. And not to sound like the Dalai Lama, but everything is within. And again, the older I get, the more I realize, like, everything external is not going to bring you what you want. It's all internal. So I do feel part of it is a journey. So I think a lot of people who beat themselves up that they don't have the answer just yet, I think it's fine. But like I just mentioned, I think the key for me is separating the conscious and subconscious and distracting the conscious. There's sometimes where I talk with my wife Samira, and we're having a conversation, and like I just might not be getting what she's saying, and the best conversations we've had sometimes is when I'm driving. Like, I call her when I'm driving. Like, we live together, but as soon as I get on a long drive, I call her and I'm like, honey, like, I'm yours now, because my consciousness is distracted with the monotony of driving. And when she asks me stuff, I'm kind of talking to her. She's talking to a higher power, and we have so much more in-depth conversation. Same with the treadmill. Like, my body is kind of just walking. So you can think, and I know a lot of people in RNT just go out for walks, and when you go out for walks, it's the same concept. Your body's taken over the boring stuff, and then that allows your brain to kind of go into that second phase.
We had Professor Shane O'Mara, who wrote a book all about walking. He came on the podcast and he was talking about, some of the best thinkers use walking as a strategy to access higher powers and develop new ideas. And I know a lot of my ideas have come from just walking and being unplugged in nature, because like you said, you're distracting that conscious and you can get rid of the distractions to really look within.
Exactly. Steve Jobs used to do a lot of that, didn't he? He used to do walking meetings.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of them as well. With what you said there, like, is getting comfortable with not knowing the answer. Like, one of the most interesting parts of this journey is that a lot of it's intangible. Like, you don't, especially after the first sort of checkpoint. After the first checkpoint, everything's intangible. It's you can't see it, but it's there. Like, things are happening inside. Things are happening around you or within you, but you can't see it. And that's a difficult concept to grasp. But leaning into the unknown is where all the positive change happens. How have you found that after your first checkpoint, you got into the shape of your life? We've seen the pictures from middle of 2018, but since then, you've had a couple of checkpoints along the way. But for the most part, we don't have a set date per se. It's navigating through that intangible to just develop and improve each week. How have you found that that evolution of the journey of the past 3 years?
It's a good question. I think I think the first part of it is, I don't think anything is ever done without hard work. So hard work and consistency, and what's the phrase? Ruthless consistency. I think it was
Yeah,
you or Sarad, I can't remember.
it was me.
But I love that, because like anything you want in life, you need to just smash out day in, day out, and be consistent. And if you do that, the results will come. The hard part is when you start the RNT journey, is you don't see the results straight away sometimes. So if you look at it, so say you started and you've got your first photo shoot, right? There's a midpoint, right? And anything before the midpoint, like you may not have seen massive changes, and you're still questioning yourself, can this be done? But this is the time when you need to realize to just double down on the consistency side. And I think I was saying this to Amit, that once you get to the midpoint, it's such a big change. Because I remember it myself. I mean, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was wearing like this kind of blue, a bit tighter top, and I was kind of like a shadow sparring, and I was like, holy frag, like I am actually looking like I've always imagined myself to look like. And I was just like, I was like, I was like quite euphoric. I was like, it's actually happening. I've been training my whole life and it's actually happening. So it's that initial point where you've got to trust in that process. Then you see, because you don't see the physical feedback loop straight away. You may do, you may not, but it's that point where I was like, oh my God, this is it. That's when I leant in even further. And then that's when we got to the photo shoot. And I guess now, I mean, I have always been goal orientated, but for me, I'm trying to do a few different things. Like, you got to ask yourself why you're doing exercise to an extent. What's the reason behind it? But for me, I'm not there for I guess the weightlifting area. I'm not there for a specific goal. I'm there for, to an extent, self mastery, which is never perfection.
There you
My
go.
daughter says it as well. So my daughter says, practice makes progress. And they teach her that at school now. And I'm really
Wow.
happy that it's not practice makes perfect, because there is no perfect. Like, and I don't, there is no this this stage where you're perfect. So I'm just going for the sake that I'm going to make progress. And I said this to to Shiv, one of my friends as well, is that I just want to be better. Like, as long as I'm better than I am yesterday, that's where I'm going. I'm not there to do I don't know. I don't have a specific goal in this weightlifting field. So yeah, that's.
But it's
kind
not
of
just weightlifting, right? You're talking about self-care as a whole. Like there's no tangible goal that you have, and we haven't had a tangible goal for a long time, but it's that quest for self-mastery. And then the other thing is, like, if I was to say to you, look, Akash, would you ever go back to where you were 3 years ago? What would you say?
What do you mean? Physically,
Like
mentally, or?
everything, like the way you were living your life 3 years ago.
No, I mean, I was saying this when I turned
Completely
40.
different person, right?
Yeah, exactly. When people ask me, they said, "Oh, you're turning 40." I'm like, and they're like, "How is it?" And I'm like, I feel like my life is just beginning. Like, I feel like now I've got the tools, the mindset, and the ability to handle life in the best way possible to serve me and my family. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't go back. I'm so happy with where I am, and the mindset I've got now is about more balance. So physically, mentally, and back then I didn't understand that. So I think 3 years have served me very, very well.
With the talk around turning back, a lot of it is about rewiring behavior, mindset, identity. How's that process happen to you? Because that's the intangible element of this all, in that you slowly start rewiring the way you think, the way you act, your behaviors around food, around activity, your identity. Like you start identifying as a healthy, lean person. How did this transformation evolve? Because that's one in itself, but you can't measure that. You
Yeah,
can't see that.
yeah. I think let's start off with.
You might not even thought about it, right?
No. I mean,
happens.
I've definitely had a relationship with food, which I'll come on to. But I think if I look at the identity, I guess I've always had the ability to visualize. And even like when I was a kid, I always wanted to be kind of athletic, martial arty, have agility and stuff like that. So I always associated myself with that vision and that identity. So when I started RNT, I always had this vision of who I was going to be, like Ritik Roshan. If you remember, we had that testimonial that we did. So I think that served me very well, because I started identifying as, you know, a lean individual. And even now, like when I'm looking at something, I say I'm a high performance athlete. That's what I say to myself, and I'm like, and it helps me, because I'm like, would a high performance athlete go for that chocolate bar? And it'll be like no, and I'll be like, no, I'm a high performance athlete, then I'm not. So I think I've always had the identity. I never had the way to achieve that identity, and that's where RNT came in. So I've always had that, but I guess my relationship with food has changed massively. Like I used to have rotli and shak for like 20 years. That was it. If my mum ever asked me what would you like, I would have that, because I would be eating on taste.
Just for
And
any listeners who don't know, that's chapatis and curry.
yeah, basically. I used to love that. I still do, but now food is, again, if you're a high performance athlete, what is food? Food is, it's not to say food doesn't have to taste good, because food can still taste good, but now food is fuel. Fuel is recovery. Fuel is carbs that will keep you energized. Fuel is fats that will, you know, keep your body in shape. And fuel is protein that will help you build your muscles. So now I think of it on a completely different level. And I've got alarms on my phone for my meals. So like 10:30, it bangs, and it's like, okay, let me go get my protein shake. 2:30, it bangs, let me go get my mid-afternoon snack. So yeah, I've gone from just eating, from stress eating what I want, eating for pleasure, to eating for purpose, if that makes, and that serves my lifestyle now. Whereas I think food doesn't people don't think of food when it comes to your lifestyle and how does it help you, how does it support you. It's just kind of random or as and when. Whereas now I think it's more purposeful.
What have been some of the steps that have allowed you to go there? Is it just been the reframing of it?
All kind of.
Have you done any sort of strategies that have helped you? Like, I know you've discussed meal hygiene in the past, but is it just the framing aspect for you?
I think framing's massive as well, but the meal hygiene was a game changer, because I remember I went out with some family for a curry night, and I remember what we used to do is like have a mixed grill, and like it's like, oh, there's stuff left on the table, finish it. And I was like, and you know, you eat to the point where it's just so uncomfortable, and I really hate that. And Asian culture is like eat. There's people starving, but it's not like, hang on, if you don't eat this food, we're going to go deliver that food to the starving. Like there's a bit of a disconnect there. So that's how it used to be. But in that situation, I ordered a prawn curry, and I really thought about my food hygiene. I almost closed my eyes when I was eating it. And I had that from the start, where they had starters and they ordered mains and they continued going. And each bite that I had, like I took like 20 to 30 chews, and it was amazing. Like I really connected with my food. I really enjoyed my food. And what I realized, I couldn't even finish that one prawn curry. I only ate like 3/4 of it, and I was satiated. It felt good. And these guys were eating like, not, you know, it's not in a bad way or disrespectful way, but they were eating like they're on a mission. Like, I have to eat this food and I've got to go through mains. Whereas I was eating for taste. So I think meal hygiene is massive. Just taking your time with food, chewing it, you enjoy it, you connect with it, and you feel satiated a lot, you know, a lot more, rather than just, the problem is when you eat quickly, you eat a lot more than I guess you should, because you don't feel satiated. So when you eat slower, I definitely found that a big game changer in framing it.
You talked about the first sort of 12 months being a real like, re-education of everything, and you know, not instead of integrating education, you had to create a new education for yourself. How did you find months 12 to 24, and then 24 to 36, and now 36 to where are we at, 39, 40? Like, what's been the changes there? So people people can see like how does it evolve in that sense, with regards to some of the development you've had?
So I think
We'll
the
start with
initial
2012 to 24. Yeah.
yeah, it's almost it's unlearning. Unlearning is a big part of phase one. Unlearning and just starting to build up a rhythm. I think so 0 to kind of 12 months is just unlearning, and it's so hard, right? Because you've taken so long to learn this behavior, to then unlearn it is the same amount of time, or to do that. So you unlearn it. Then when you move from 12 to 24 months, it's about building a rhythm, really starting to build a rhythm. And then for me personally, 24 months plus is really driving that performance. And see, I mean, I've always loved the education that RNT have had, and I, again, the mindset I've got now is let's always learn about it, and fitness is something I value quite a lot. So right now in this, 3 years plus, it's like, how can I really drive performance now? I've gone through those first 2 years, first 3 years now, right? So yeah, that's kind of where that's a very top level synopsis of those 3 years.
Go into a little bit more about performance. Like what sort of benefits do you see, and what sort of how are you, again, you're big on framing. What are you framing? You said high performance athlete, but how is it acting as a vehicle for the rest of your life?
Yeah, so I guess it's how far can I push myself now that I've got a solid base. If you try and push really hard, you don't know what you're doing, you end up with an injury, or you don't quite know what you're doing. But I think we've got up enough rhythm to really push hard. And I guess one of the benefits of pushing hard, and that doesn't mean just, it means, I guess, pushing heavier weights, it means doing more reps, getting better form, that for me is performance. All of that is, I think, it works very closely to my own of growing. Like, I've always wanted to make progress, so form, weights and reps is always something that's kind of close to my heart. And I think pushing hard is really important, because in your life you're pushing hard, right? And then so in your life you're pushing hard in, say, business, family, whatever you're doing. And when you're pushing hard at the gym, that's my reset button. So going half-hearted doesn't really cut it. I'm training 5 days a week at the moment, with 2 rest days, and we're always kind of balancing that. But I think pushing hard for me is a fantastic and much needed reset for the rest of my life. And if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I'd probably be bonkers. So,
It's the anchor point, right?
Yeah.
Anchor point. I know we share that sentiment.
Yeah, it has been for 3 years, right? Every morning I get up, I do my training. Even on my days off, it's almost the same. I still get on the treadmill, but this time I do recovery work. So now I do stretching, now I do some foam rolling, but it's the same routine, 7 days a week. I'm up, I do my steps, and then I'm either pushing hard or I'm doing what I can to recover.
How did you cultivate this love for training? Because I think that's the key for long-term lifestyle solutions, is having a love for training in whatever sense. You found your flow in your training this year, especially with integrating more sort of skill-based gymnastics. But how have you cultivated this real love for training that you see so much value in just that hour in the day that it's a non-negotiable?
Yeah, I think so. I guess there's 2 points. I'll start with in reverse order. The second point is, once you've achieved a kind of low body composition, you can do it. Like, at that point, I think you've got 2 ways. You either say I've done it and you leave it, or you're kind of locked in for life. Yeah. And then you realize that that's an anchor point and you continue. But for me, I guess everyone has a different connection with the universe, a different energy, a different strength. Some people might be, like my wife's quite people oriented. Her connection with the universe is people. So she connects with people. She loves talking with people. She feels energized with people. Me as a person, I connect with the universe physically. So even when I play with my kids, like I'm messing about, I'm rolling around. I've like I said, I've done gymnastics, I've done martial arts, I've done exercise. When I do that, that's when I feel connected. So I think it's yeah, I can't speak for other people, but I think for me, it's how I feel the most connected with the universe. It's like a meditation, right? I think you and other people have said it's my switch off point. And when I'm doing it, I feel connected with the universe. And it's that flow point. It's like,
Yeah.
and flow is kind of semi-defined as it's not too hard that it becomes unattainable, and it's not too easy, but it's challenging in the right amount. And that challenge, that physical exertion in your body it's just incredible. So addictive, right? It's like a drug.
It literally is. Like, you know,
Yeah,
every Friday I train with Sham, you know, the guy who
yeah,
ultimately inspired you actually to his picture kind of made you start. And we always say every Friday, we're like, this is the drug for the week, because this is the biggest session of the week. And it's
yeah,
just, I was telling you, like, you know, finishing the week on a Friday with a massive leg session is just the perfect way to end.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just that fix. Like, I know it's coming tomorrow. We were recording this on a Thursday, and I know it's coming tomorrow. And it's like, okay, that signals the end of the week, but it's also like a big hit of a drug.
yeah. And
And
it
I
literally
think
is that,
everyone
right?
should feel that. Like, I love for
Yeah,
everyone to feel that in whatever form it is. Like, you like training in a slightly different way to I
yeah.
like training, but it's finding whatever works for you and just hooking that in.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly. So my wife, she's never been big on like working out, but she dances. So she used to dance. That's her connection. Everyone's got their own thing. And like there's so many worse things that you could be doing, right? Like you could be drinking to get this hit. You could be doing like some hard drugs or whatever it is to get this hit. But like exercising is like the best of everything. You know, you're healthy. The effects on your brain, which Ivan talks about a lot in that book Spark as well,
Mm-hmm.
like is massive. So not only physically do you feel good, mentally you feel good, you feel confident. It affects your you know your relationships. It's like, I don't want to call it the perfect item because everything has a balance in life, but yeah, I've kind of come to this point, and it's my anchor life. I don't drink, I don't do anything else. This is my drug.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. Speaking of, I was going to say, speaking of drugs, what, what I was going to say is, with regards to using it as an anchor point in your day and giving you that drug fix. The reason why I said speaking of drugs is because you know, drugs and alcohol and bad behaviors are typically used to sort of work through demons, or even like or cover over demons, and run away from them,
Mm.
and you know, use it as a crutch to work through that. How's this journey allowed you to counter some of your demons from the past and continue to do so in the future?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So I think when people, for me, and I think for some people, exercise is used to kind of almost not, I'm going to say it's kind of to prove something. So I'll explain. So in my situation, so my dad, um, he came over to the UK in the 70s, and he was actually a professor in India. So his kind of biggest priorities in life were education. So when he came over, again, he was a lecturer. Everything he'd done and accomplished in life, he'd done by being studious, by learning and using his brain. So then he had me in the 80s, and I was the opposite, right? So I'm very experiential learner, whereas him and potentially my brother are like, you know, learn, watch, learn, and then, you know, you do it. Where I'm like, I have to hit my head against a wall before I realize it's going to hurt. Um, so I was all about exploring life and experiencing life rather than just sitting in a classroom. So I didn't really do well educationally. You know, I'm pretty sure I'm dyslexic. I still need to take the test. Um, but my dad had this kind of loathing with that. And I remember one day he said to me, Akash, come here. And I can't remember, I was what, uh, you know, I think it was 7 or something. He said, come here, sit down. Do you even know how to write a sentence? And I felt so stupid that day. Like, I felt I had so much, you know, my self-worth was on the floor. I felt stupid. Um, and that was kind of my relationship with my dad. My dad just kind of saw me as a bit of a failure because he was judging me by education. And then I went to school. I didn't really do well at education. I failed my GCSEs. I got low grades in A levels. Uh, and again, so now I've got my dad saying I'm not very good. I've got the school system saying that you're a failure because you failed. And the majority of my life, I guess, up to about 30, I felt a bit like a failure. Um, and when I was a kid, I used to kind of watch like these big big heroes, right? Like Rambo, Sly Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jackie Chan, Van Damme. And I was, oh my God, it would be so awesome to kind of do that. And so what I'm kind of centering around is this self-worth element. And Einstein said it, he goes, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will go its whole life thinking it's stupid. A fish can't climb a tree.
Mm.
And this is the thing, I think not everyone is educationally endowed. So I spent a lot of my life, and even now suffer from kind of low self-esteem because of that, because of that injected value that my dad kind of had on me. And I've kind of worked through it now, but I guess I wanted to kind of do something to prove myself to him. And that's kind of where part of the kind of, I guess, exercises, and I've got this never ending hunger. So when you're saying these demons, the demon that I have personally is self-worth and low self-esteem. And it's kind of my way of proving myself. And it, you know what, it actually made such a massive difference, because up until that point, like I thought, you know, I was a bit of a failure, I hadn't done really well. And this was my own perception. But then, you know, about 35, I started doing some businesses, things started going well. And I was like, hang on a minute, you're not stupid. You know, you don't judge yourself by education alone. And that's when the RNT journey also came in. And the RNT journey, I actually, you know, everything, I really wanted a good physical body composition my whole life. So I was coming up in my self-esteem, and then I had the body transformation. And that really was a turning point in my life, because I was like, you do have self-worth, you can do things. And I'm not to say you judge a person solely by their, you know, their physique or something, but when I do see someone who's quite ripped or quite big, it takes a lot of self-discipline to get there. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Some people see people at the gym and think, oh, that guy's a meathead, but they don't understand the work and the mindset and the eating and the training that's gone into that. So that was a me, my self-esteem, my self-worth, that I think working out and training helps you build up your confidence. It helps it for a lot of people, right? Whether you're fat, whether you're skinny, I think training helps you feel good about yourself. And it's not necessarily about what other people feel about you. It's more about how you feel about yourself. So I think training really, really helped me overcome that. And when I had that checkpoint, you know, I felt, that's when I realized there's nothing in this world that I can't do. And do not judge yourself by what other people perceive of you. Judge yourself. And that's when I really started to make a dent in my own self-esteem. Like, I'm not 100% there yet. I don't think anyone is, but I am in a lot better position. If I didn't have this, like, again, yeah, I'd not be in the best of places, to be honest.
The last 2 years since that checkpoint, and since you realized this, and you know you worked on your self-esteem, how are you maintaining that? Is it through the daily practice, or how? Because it's one thing to realize it; it's another thing to action it for life, like you've done.
Yeah.
What was the practice then after that first realization?
I think part of it, I continued the training, but I wasn't as concerned with how I looked.
Mm.
That was the first part. That's because I'd achieved a certain level of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Go on.
No. I was gonna just say, like, you've internalized the whole process, as
Yeah.
opposed to wrapping up external validation, even if the external is actually you.
Yeah.
Instead of wrapping the validation in external people or external physique, it's wrapped
Yeah.
up internally, mindset, emotions,
Yeah.
etc.
Exactly. So part of it was once you've got there, it's not just to say let it go, but you know you can achieve that, and you validated yourself. So that was massive. So I'd had physical feedback that I can do it, which is fantastic, and that proves to yourself, when you keep telling yourself you can't do something and then you see yourself do it, that is such a big mind shift change, because now you've got no excuse. Now you can't say, I can't do this, I can't do that. If you've gone and achieved this level, you've got no excuses in life. And I guess the other part is, I think we are our own worst critics, like massively. Like, no one has it in for us like we do. Like, we say some really bad stuff about some of the things that we do. Like, you're ugly, you can't do this, you do whatever your self-talk is. But it's really important to balance that self-talk out with positive talk. And I'm not talking about ego, but I think you should spend time acknowledging and being grateful. I think, let's say grateful, like be grateful for what you've got in your life. And I'm very grateful for my family, a house, my kids, my wife, my situation. Being grateful for kind of where I've come, but then I take note. So I have like an achievements list that I review, and it helps me balance out some of those times where I'm probably overly negative. And it's like, what have I achieved today? And I think people should do more of this, just write an achievement. And again, it's not in an egotistical way, but you should show yourself, and it helps you build up that kind of self-confidence. So that's another way that I do it, is I reflect upon where I am and what's gone well, what's not gone well, my learnings. But ultimately, I start giving myself a pat on the back, because if you don't give yourself a pat on the back, it's not a situation. If you're waiting for someone else to do it, it may never come. So I think once you've achieved a better balance of self-esteem, you need to validate yourself. No one else is going to validate you. And that's again, that comes back to introspection, reviewing what you're doing, being thankful for what you've got, and appreciating what you've done well.
Introspection plus action.
Yeah.
Amazing. A lot of the stuff around education you mentioned and having it enforced on you as a value is a very much the traditional sense of education. The school system, academics, etc. If you had the opportunity to change the education system, you've got two kids.
Yeah.
What would you want them to learn in primary and secondary? Well, just say overall, what would you like their subjects and then the way they're assessed to be?
Yeah, I mean, the basic curriculum of like English, maths is not bad, but I think the softer skills are massive. And the biggest thing for me, having gone through my own journey, is and I think the role of the education system is to help understand what the kids' strengths and weaknesses are, and how they can, once they understand their strengths and a natural path in life, how they can follow that. I think the problem with the school system is you've got a triangle block and you're putting into a square peg. And based on that, you have people who look good and you have people who look bad. And I think if the education system can do anything, is be more holistic in their approach and help kids find their dharma, their true path. And I always say this, is that Aria came home, my daughter, she goes, I got 12 out of 12 in a spelling test. And I said, that's fantastic. I said, did you try? Because for me, it's, as long as you've tried your best, that counts a lot more than natural ability. So I think if the school system teaches kids what they're good at and what they're bad at, and really hones in. So again, there's kind of main areas that you can be good at, bad at. You can have people strength, where you're just very good with people. You can have academic strength, which means you're quite analytical. You can have leadership skills, which means you can lead a team. You can have kind of creative strengths, where you're very good at coming up with ideas. And there's all these different facets of life, and just helping people understand that everyone is different. There's not one size fits all. And this is the reality. Everyone's got a unique skill that the whole society can really benefit from, that one person. And schooling system and the parents' job is to help that kid find that real unique skill and trait.
Superpower,
yeah.
One thing I know you're a massive fan on, as you've just spoken about, is a specific system called Wealth Dynamics, which is based around finding your flow. And it's something we've done together. You've helped me identify mine, and I know you do it with a lot of other people, and it's something you're extremely passionate about, which is why you probably said that to Aria. Tell us more about the system. You kind of alluded to it so far, but how can people find their flow in what they do and really lean into it to give the world their gift?
Yeah. So I think it starts off with, at school and work, you get told, um, you're good at this, but you're not so good at that. You should really try and work on that and make that better. And I think that's where I disagree. I think to an extent, you need to be able to survive in society by knowing everything pretty well. But I think it's about, really understanding what your true strengths are and using that to add value. And the way to understand it is, let me think, it's a kind of, have you heard of the profiling systems like disc profiling, Myers-Briggs?
Yeah.
You might
The different
do
types of
that.
personality tests. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So wealth dynamics, it talks about everyone has different types of energies in them. So you've got creative energy, which is like Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs was very, very good at coming up with great ideas. Now, he wasn't the person who went and delivered it. Now, if you asked Steve Jobs to come and deliver it, he made it be pretty terrible, which is why he had Wozniak to actually deliver it. So you've got creative skills. On the square, on the right hand side, you've got people skills, which is where, and there's no right or wrong. You've got a strength and you've got a weakness, and it's about honing into your strength. So Samira, my wife, is a people person. So we understood by taking wealth dynamics that she's people oriented. So through lockdown, she really started getting a bit agitated, kind of sitting at home all the time. And if it wasn't for wealth dynamics, we wouldn't have realized that she's out of flow, she's out of balance. So she started doing a lot more kind of Zoom calls. And when she got Zoom calls, she started getting energized. So it's about understanding where your energy is, where you're energized, and what drains your energy. So Samira's drained by kind of sitting at home, being kind of secluded. Now, if you ask her to go out to a party or go out and speak to people, she would love it. She would get up, she would go out and she would smash it. You tell her to sit by herself and do some analytical work, that's when she would start really getting she'll start feeling drained.
Yeah.
And me, I'm the opposite. Like, so I'm on the steel side. So steel side is I'm quite introverted. Like, if I've got to go out, I'll find a way to kind of get out of this. I think I even mentioned something like that on his podcast. So steel people are quite analytical. They like the detail side of things, and they don't like ambiguity. So again, sometimes when me and Samir are talking, I'll be like, honey, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, I'm more binary. Like, it's either black or white. There's no room for gray. So I've got my strength in kind of being creative as well, because I'm on that side, but I'm also quite introverted. I like some of the detail. But I don't necessarily always like going out. But again, there's a balance. And at the bottom, you've got people of this kind of matrix. You've got people who are all about the timing and delivery. So my business partner at On Point Mortgages, he's got more of a kind of balanced profile at the bottom, and he's fantastic with detail. But sometimes when we have a conversation, when it talks about the kind of creative side of how creative we could go, maybe he won't be as involved in that. So when you understand your kind of strengths and weaknesses, you'll realize, oh my God, why did I spend my whole life doing this? Like, I was a project manager for 10 years and I managed to survive in that because I had some, I was good with people, but detail wasn't, some of the detail side wasn't my strength. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done for 10 years? Now I'm focusing more on, I guess, the creative side and what my flow is. Like, I love it, and people find that I add a lot more value. So I think that's kind of a gist of it. And if we talk about what flow is, so flow is like being in the zone, as it were. It's a kind of point in time where you're completely zoned out. You're only thinking about the task at hand. Time seems to kind of stand still, and you're doing it for the sake of doing it. Like a sport, for example, or training. You're not doing it to make millions of pounds. You're doing it because you love it, and at the end of it, you feel energized. And then the opposite of flow is anti-flow. And anti-flow is when you're doing a task that you're like, oh my God, when is this task going to end? And you're looking at the watch and it's still not there. And you feel like you're kind of paddling uphill. And the problem is there's so many things that we accept in life now that we're in anti-flow. And we just accept it and we're like, oh my God, I feel so drained. maybe that's not the right task for you. And the reality is there's a balance to everything. I have to put this on charge. So give me a sec. Yeah, so the reality is there'll be tasks that you do that you find hard and that you struggle with, when the reality is you've got other people who are like 10 times as good as that, who can do it 10 times as fast, and it's not worth your time to do those tasks. So when you understand your strengths and weaknesses, you start to focus on your strengths, start outsourcing your weaknesses, start enjoying your life, start feeling more energized in life. And more than that is you add a lot more value to people. Like if you look at yourself, for example, I think you're focusing mainly on your strengths now, and your value and the amount of people that you can touch will only go up.
Yeah, totally
Whereas
agree.
if you were just doing finances while running your business,
I got mad.
doing
I did that for a long time.
yeah. And again, it's not just you, so you'd feel drained, but then when at that point are you able to add value to other people? You're not.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
know I'm definitely creative, but also have an analytical element to it. So it's like creative analyst. So I'm not like so head in the skies that I forget the details, but I can still execute, if that makes sense.
yeah. And there's a test that anyone can do. I mean, it's on.
The
I
free
mean, I
one.
can. Yeah. There's a free one you can do, but there is a more detailed one that you can do. But if you do want to find out more, I'll put. I'll send you the link. You can put it on the
Yeah,
podcast.
sure.
And like that's understanding your role within a business. Like for me and Samira, who's my wife, again, like the way we communicate with each other has completely changed as well. Like the way I understand her now, I never would have understand her before. Like I would always kind of say to her, "Oh my God, why isn't this done? Or why isn't certain things done?" That was my value, but that was my perception of it. But now I know wealth dynamics. That's just not who she is. I accept that, whereas I didn't accept it before. I now understand it. Like that's not who she is. She knows that about me as well. She's like, "This is what Akash is." It's helped our relationship massively. So it's not just how you are in business or how you are with teams, but your relationships can be massively impacted when you understand people.
Speaking of which, how have you managed the journey with a young family? You've had one of your kids was only born last year. How have you managed the whole journey of self-care and keeping it a priority for yourself, whilst also being you're one of the most, I always say you're one of the most active fathers I know. um, definitely family goals when I see you. So what is this, how have you managed to balance that, the journey, and a business as well?
Yeah. So I think it's about priority. A lot of people say I haven't got time, but it really does boil down to if it's a priority or not. So for me, so the kids wake up at 6:30. So really, and then 9 o'clock's work. So from 6:30, I'm on parent duty. Well, it's a lot earlier to actually start work now. But once I've dropped the kids off to school and reception, then it's work. So now I've got to think, when can I do my time and when can I do my training time? So the only real answer is after, which is after 7 o'clock when they go to sleep, or before. And I think for me, like the mornings and waking up in the mornings is the best thing I've done in my life. And you'll hear this probably from other people, and there's some great books on it, but waking up early and having that time for me and getting training out of the way means that 2 ticks. And I've done the most important thing first. And it's always about for me, it's about doing the most important thing. Then I've got kids, then I've got work, and then I've got kids again. That's it. What more could you want? And I think it's for me, it's priority. A lot of other people say to me, don't you want to chill in the evening and watch TV and do this? And I'm like, again, it's priority. I could do that, but and it's not to say it's wrong, because if you want to wind down, that's fine. But for me, it's more important to have that self time and to make sure I've got my exercise in. So for me, it's just smash the mornings. If I don't get my morning right, the rest of my day is kind of like
Yeah,
messed up.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So
So
what are you doing? You hitting
morning,
your training? What time are you hitting your training then at the moment?
Yeah. So at the moment, I wake up at 3:30. I remember we actually had a conversation about this about 6 months ago, where it was like, do I still need to wake up at 3:30? And it was a decision to, why are you still waking up at 3:30? And I tried not to, and it just everything just felt off. And again, it's about understanding yourself. Everything felt off. My energy was different. My hunger was different. I didn't feel as accomplished. So I just lent in, and I was like, frag it. I'm just going to stick to it. And I started, 3:30. That's it. I wake up. So if I wake up at 3:30, I come downstairs. I get 2 bottles of water,
Yeah.
and then I get on the treadmill, and I've got some time for me. So thinking, and then depending on how busy it is, I'll start work. So 4 to 5, I'm either thinking or doing work. 5 o'clock, I would hit the gym, which is at home at the moment, which is absolutely fine. Um, at 6 o'clock, I'll do another half an hour's worth of work, tidying up, prepping for the day. And then 6:30, the little one wakes up. We go downstairs. We have breakfast together, take him to school and reception, and then I come back and start work again.
How do you wake up at 3:30 without waking the house up?
Very quietly. So I've got my my watch that just vibrates at 3:30.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it is a struggle, but again, there's times when I've slept in, and then I'm like, I've actually felt worse for sleeping in.
Yeah, I can relate to
So
that.
yeah, I go downstairs. They're snoozing away. I'm not bothering them. I've got headphones on. Yeah, happy days.
What time do you sleep then?
So I go to sleep about 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So 7 o'clock, yeah, when the kids go to sleep. But basically, I'm a big kid. My routine, and do you know what? I said this before it happened. I was like, how can? And I'm always I was always kind of changing and seeing how I could synchronize my life better. And I remember one point, and I said it. I was like, what if I just align my time with like the kids and stuff? and this is where we are. And for me, it works absolutely perfect. And Samira couldn't be happier. She's like at 7 o'clock. The kids are asleep. Akash is asleep. She gets some time by herself as well. So
yeah.
we're at home during the day. So lunchtime we're together. Other times we're together. It just works for our family. I know other people think it's very, very weird. But yeah, it works for me. But the only other part is I eat at 5, which I think sometimes people eat a lot later. So I put other people out by eating early.
Yeah.
But yeah,
fair play. Like I think the main message there is you found what works for you.
Yeah.
That's what it really is, right? It's just you found what works for you. You've got your priorities in line, and it works. It works for your work, your family, and your health. So happy days, right?
Exactly. And I'd encourage anyone to find out what works for them, and just be confident enough to hold on to that.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you talk about optimum performance and stuff like that, it's when people change that, or situations come in to change that, but you being confident enough to saying, look, it's 7 o'clock, I'm going. Because if I don't, and the way I always weigh it up is, if I don't go to sleep, I'm going to forgo my morning. So my morning starts the night before. If I don't go to sleep at this time, I'm not going to have that morning. So yeah, I'm quite strict when it comes to that timing, and yeah, it's really, really honed in massively.
So what's next for your journey then? You're currently doing some gymnastic skill work. We're always dialing in your performance. So what's next what's the next 12 months hold for Mr. Desai?
Yeah, so similar to Nathan, actually, I'm really, really working on handstand. So 2 days a week I work on 2 days a week I work on weights and body weight. 2 days a week I work on handstand work and gymnastics work, and then one day I do kung fu. So really, I really want to nail my handstand. I think I had unrealistic expectations that I would get it in like 6 months or a year, but I've really just dialed into that as well. It's a much longer slog, but again, I'm taking what I've learned with my first phase of RNT and applying it, and I'm on the train now. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm working on a press to handstand, which is where your hands come down, your feet go to the side, and then you go up. So yeah, it might be another year, might be another 2 years, but just drilling away. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, awesome. And just to finish up here, bit of a soppy question for you, but how's RNT transformed your life?
Yeah, I think what part of my life has it not touched? Physically, it's kind of made me a lot better. It's enabled me to do the things I've always wanted to do. Mentally, I'm almost at peak performance, if that makes sense. Like, I couldn't deal with the stress that I have at work if I didn't have the structure and the grind that I have at RNT. It's like my kind of thingy balance. Family life is, I've got a perfect balance of family life. Me and the kids we train together. So 5 o'clock when I'm on kid time, me and Ari go and do gymnastics. So we do some stretching on the floor and she does roly polies. It's affected my business because I'm in peak performance. I can perform for my business as well. So I think the question is, what hasn't it affected? It's been an absolute game changer. And what I guess the other thing is, I wouldn't be here 3 years on if it wasn't. And you've got more clients here for 3 years. So anyone listening to this podcast, just ask yourself, why is this guy here for 3 years? A lot of people say, I'll do this and I'll get out. I'll be here for life. Like, the structure, the guidance will be here. And the other thing I look at it is, if you've got if you break your bone, you don't go to your next door neighbor and say, can you fix it? You look at people who are the best in their field, and I firmly believe in that. So that's why I've got RNT. Like, physical health is really important to me. That's why I'll be with RNT for life, because I want to stay in good physical health. As soon as there's a big relationship, as soon as you drop off in something like that, like, you'll see performance go down. You don't have the accountability. You don't necessarily have the structure. So yeah.
What do you gain most out of the process right now? What are you getting most out of it?
I think accountability is a big one.
I
think knowing that if someone else is going to kick your ass, I think is always good. I think, you as a person are subjective, right? You have to, in every single way, you'll be subjective to what you're doing. Whereas someone else can give you what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And it's that questioning, that pushing, that pulling, that really, I think, is the most valuable thing that I'm getting right now.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing your story, Akash.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.